Exactly, and we'll be seeing which one of these raises is gonna girl boss all over the enemy team.
It's gotta be Cloud9 White. You know, they're a Game Changers team. They gotta be girl bosses.
Very true. And Jazzykins was girl bossing on the Phoenix earlier, so I am all for seeing how that's going to come into play now that this is potentially a little bit more of a comfort pick. Unfortunately, I too freeze when I see two members of the enemy team pop up on my screen, and I'm just like, I couldn't even pick one of you to hit.
And now lead, actually really nicely done from them to find that very first opening pick. It's going to be on the entry fragger as well. I mean, having the breach as well as the fade is going to give you a lot of info and entry abilities, even without someone who is going to be that space maker. And we saw that Cloud9 White was able to work without a space maker on Ascent. So now they're just going to have to watch out for Kire on top of the box. What was that shot now? Quickly traded out, but this is the start of the engagement of the push onto that A site, and Alexis getting the strike down as fast as possible. Have also Paranoia out delay. It's not going to get any kind of value, but it actually is going to push them off for a little while longer. The Haunt also getting a lot of value for the left side of the league, knowing where these players are, just waiting for the dark covers now. The Haunt going out into heaven and going to try and find one, but now last player is going to push on through that dark cover. It's all red in the kill feed though. Cloud9 White take the first pistol, and are we surprised? I do not believe we are.
Again, every pistol round won by Cloud9 White. I mean, they did lose a bonus. Well, it was their bonus. Elite force bot into it as they had to because Cloud9 White were on match point. But every pistol, strictly pistol round, won by Cloud9 White, and continuing to hold on to that title. It seemed pretty close when he actually saw Elite put themselves into a 3v3 situation. Unfortunately, it seemed like they were waiting for their utility to get back up. Maybe not anticipating that also means that your opponent's utility comes back up, and I think Cloud9 White just did a little bit better with their utility that came back up, namely that Haunt being able to gather information and that extra dark cover that really blocked off a lot of information. Whoa!
Trying to get really aggressive in a lobby. Kirai is going to be able to find that singular pick.
One enemy remaining.
Rounding the corner, just a little bit of a spray on the Spectre is going to take down that chamber. And now it's all left up to one agility with only one dark cover coming back up in 3 seconds, and
Spike planted.
Can make a hero play here as Spike is being planted, Becky.
It seems unlikely, but if you've got just the classic, you gotta go ahead and just go for the old college try. Unfortunately, old college try doesn't go the same for everybody. And now, though, you do have these sweet embraces of death that equate into being able to buy full loadouts into this round. So you have at least that little bit of a silver lining for elite players.
Very true. Cloud9 White, they lost one player, and that was Mel, who now has to just stick to this classic for the round. So it's a little bit less powerful than the
I will be their nightmare.
But now it seems like they're trying to look for a fast engagement onto A, setting up the fault line to just hit A long completely, and using the boom buddy to try and clear out the first as well. Jazzy going to go for the jump peaks, and the after I'm not sure if that fault line actually did anything. Dinks is in position to take down that first. There was actually no follow-up. I expected there to be maybe a flashpoint with boxes or something, but they kind of just left Jazzy alone.
Yeah, that was interesting, and left Jazzy alone, and means that Dinks gets to get out scot-free, gets to move to a different location and continue to hold a different angle with that superb crosshair placement that was able to take down Jazzykins.
Still looking towards A as well. Taking a little bit of space, so they have that to rely back on. But now using a lot of utility, but they don't seem to be trying to go in. And now, just goes down to agility. So now that they know that there is one on the flank, I think the decision has been made to try and fake a rotation. Just let them hear the footsteps.
I'll find you. No charges.
The Haunt back on
30 seconds left.
But it gets no info to destroy
last player standing.
And they can't
Spike
even take down
down
Shen,
A.
hiding in the Cat can she clean this one up? Takes down from Kirai, but Shen with the 3K lead, this is off to a better start than Ascent was.
That's what I was just about to say. Cat wasn't able to pick up a Vandal in that last interaction and round, so it does end up going over to Leet. However, even on rounds where we got to see these two teams evenly matched as far as weaponry was concerned, Cloud9 White really did start to shine, and now that they are going to be able to put themselves onto this even ground, if not even better ground, considering that Kirei is going to be forced to rely solely on that Hunter, doesn't have the money to buy up a full gun, and is going to just hope that a teammate can take an enemy down.
Cloud9, they're looking towards C right now. Agility goes for the jump peak, and there's dark cover to try and isolate on the back site.
Flash out!
This is going to do too much for them. They're still able to walk up from
Oh, and that ping gonna be enough. Jazzykins finds the first one. A lot of assists, which just goes to show you how much utility is being used to gather this information and find these kills. It's been more than enough to set up this post plant as well. Players all across this C site and ready and waiting for Leet to try for this retake.
This does concern me a little because they have no control over the Garage. And that's the guiding light out as well as the double stack. There's Dinks to try and get something out of it, but Bob as well as the flashpoint is just going to do too much, and Leaf are overwhelmed by the utility of Cloud9 White. And they find themselves a third round on the buy-up, restarting that momentum with the pistol.
And that's, at least based on how the last game went, certainly kind of how I anticipated that round to go. They have full utility for Cloud9 White. Some of the buys on Leeds look a little bit rough and are kind of looking rough once again, dipping deep into those pockets, going to 0 credits. Kirei, once again, gonna stick to full armor and a classic, rely on that headhunter, and just hope that some teammates are able to get a little bit more damage onto those enemies than we're maybe going to see from that chamber this round.
And it seems like now that they know they're going on to A, they're just completely backing up and giving it for free, except for that heaven position from Dinks. They're going to try and play the high angle, play the power position, as Jazzy is just allowed to walk straight up from long, and spikes will go down virtually for free.
You mentioned virtually for free. We do get a little bit of a seize followed by a nade combo, but I think Jazzykins is going to live through it, through movement towards the other end of it. Cloud9 White have themselves in a 5v5 situation that nade is going to force back, but this is a great way to keep the defensive side at bay. That Rolling Thunder really pushing a lot of those players back and eating up a ton of time on this clock.
Yeah, there definitely doesn't seem to be a lot of time.
Last player standing.
Oh my gosh, what was that spray down once again from Cloud9? And Elite are forced off the site. Agility is going to try to save what he can and just run all the way to C. Attackers finding themselves a virtually flawless round, maybe, if they were able to kill Agility. But Cloud9, they are just doing so well for themselves. Elite now forced onto, once again, another timeout as soon as their opponents hit 4.
And, I mean, I do still appreciate this decision. I feel like we saw Elite make a very early timeout on the last map as well. I do think that maybe we could have seen them call another timeout earlier in the next round as well. But this time, new game. I'm going to go ahead and call it early once again. Try to talk about the decision making that Cloud9 White has made on a lot of these long angles where they're kind of just getting a little bit pushed back and forth. Their win that they were able to get was where they were advantaged as far as gun power. And on these other rounds where they've been even, they've just been kind of getting taken down and pushed back by a lot of utility and not being able to hold a lot of those longer angles where every once in a while they've been able to get lucky and find some kills off of that chamber or even dinks on this raise. So not being able to have that little bit of equity and space is kind of hurting them here.
Them not being able to have that space, like you mentioned, it's definitely it's making them suffer a lot, especially having to re-clear the angles. And now they have that Nightfall, and I think they're going to really try to fall back on that in order to try and retake those sites. Since the last retake was a little bit of a downer, I would say. I'm not sure if that is the right word for it, but it definitely wasn't what they wanted. But ooh, Jazzykins does get taken down by that Seize Nade combo. And I think knowing that Cloud9 favors this A site is definitely good information to invest that you
Bring them
early,
down.
and it does net them a pick.
Yeah, they may not be able to get away with that for too many rounds, but being able to get away with it for one round is certainly going to be more than enough. And C9 losing Jazzykins could potentially be a big part of themselves finding a favor further into this round. But a lot of utility still available for Cloud9 White as they've moved towards this C long as well as mid area, just trying to see if they can get any information out of Lead before continuing further into this round. The haunt comes out and they find agility. Unfortunately, Jared head taken off after trying to swing into that fade buddy system. That 2-and-2 push doing wonders for Cloud9 White, and Bob even able to find kills once left to her own devices.
Now, Leet, it is an eco round for them, so this is going to be tough since it's a 2v4. The showstopper, not sure if it should be invested, especially that slow peek right into Cat's crosshairs. And now Kira does have the Vandal here, picking one off of that dead body, but still a 1v4, and I'm not sure if the call is to save since starting out with not really anything and leaving with a Vandal. That is a pretty positive interaction, if I do say so myself, a little bit of extra value from the round at the very least, passing off the Vandal to a friend, potentially. But Cloud9, they do win that round once again.
Yeah, and a rough start losing Jazzykins, but it's not enough to keep Cloud9 White and their buddy system at bay, being able to move over to the other side of the map and just slowly wait for that utility to come back, especially that information gathering utility in that haunt from Bob that was really instrumental in letting them know where some players are. Because even if the haunt doesn't see you, if you have to shoot the haunt, that tells you plenty about where exactly your opponents can tell where you're hiding. And that's exactly how we got to see Bob and Kat take down that round, find those kills that were instrumental in getting them onto the site.
Ooh, there's a lot of mid control being taken though by Leet, but it also means that they are a little bit weaker on the site, and it's C that's going to be left alone. Cloud9 able to just take them down and get that spike through. But now using that Nightfall, I don't think it netted any information for Cloud9. Now in a 3v5 situation, while Leet has their guns, having no control over Garage as well, these defenders are just allowed to flood into the site. Now with the showstopper, there's information gathered from the Nightfall. Now it's all left up to one. It's Alexis in a 1v5. DCH to win it. He's running around trying to get away from this utility. Jared is going to swing for the kill, and Leet, they do get a second round.
And that's kind of what we've needed to see, and you got to see it so nicely in that final moment, is the use of utility that kind of forces Cloud9 White into interesting predicaments. And that was also off the back of I believe it was Cray being able to pick up a very early pick, that first blood in the round. So being able to kind of pair those two things, so saying that our utility is more potent if we're able to pick up those first bloods. I think that Cloud9 White did such a good job of it in the round before, where we saw Jazzykins kind of fall really early, was that they kind of cut everything. They gave no information over. They were like, okay, if you're going to get a 1-for-0, we're not going to give you any more, and it's not even going to be any information. And we'll see if they can do that again. But it's going to be a lot more difficult if Jazzykins doesn't check her corners.
Oh my gosh. Deppy even has, like, the boom buddy, so not using that information, not allowing it to clear the corner for her, that's devastating for Cloud9. Once again, losing a player early, they are able to bring these rounds back, and they have in the past, but now Leet, off the back of a round win, they are getting a little bit of economy built up and possibly some momentum as well. There's some confidence from Jirai as well. The Prowler forces him out of position, And it was pretty smart from Bob, knowing there's a tour de force in play. He was going out as well. Mel, knowing she's still lurking after the haunt is used. These refreshes, nicely done from Leap so far.
Cat taking some shots to clear out that wall. And that blind to come through as well. Mel's going to continue to watch Garage while the rest of the team decide, you know what, being
30 seconds
down
left.
that raise makes this B site look mighty appetizing, and just waiting for some of that default utility to come back up to get them on.
That spike right in the corner. Mel holding plant pretty nicely with the operator, and now being able to enter this plant from grass and from window instead of trying to fight the positions on the site as they're being smoked off by the dark cover. Mel, what was that shot? Finding a collateral kill with the sniper rifle. Now is really popping into the dark cover. Mel, they saw the barrel of the gun, but they don't know exactly where she is. Cat has wrapped around on the site as well, and what a flick from Kirai. Now Leap, they are getting a little bit of momentum, a little bit of rounds under their belt, and they're closing this gap.
Yeah, and Kirai even gets to go ahead and pick up Mel's operator here. That's absolutely huge. So even though a lot of members of Elite fell, that's 2 rounds in a row won, so their economy is looking good, including the 6k that Kirai has, and just being able to go with an operator from the enemy into this round. The side of C9 White, though, still looking pretty strong as well, and Mel going to be able to rely with 5k in the pocket as well on that tour de force going into this round. And they only have to go up against a from the shadows, as those are the only ults at the ready for both teams, at least to start this round off.
Now Cat, along with Jazzykins, this is like to mention what in the world though. Jazzy is not allowed to play the game. Jazzy is actually just not allowed to play the game at this point. A few seconds into the round, it's always Jazzykins who goes down first. First it was the pink cells, and then there was the corner camps, and it's just not going well for Jazzy. But I mean, Shen as well as Kirai taking down those 2 players of Cloud9 White, especially since this is the last buy that they have in their hand, is going to look really nice so far. But it's the Rolling Thunder. Shen doesn't really have a lot of places to go, especially with the concussion as well as the haunts and the flash points that are just going all the way out onto site. Cloud9, they closed it to a 3v4, still very winnable for them, especially as that Seize is thrown in heaven, delay that push, and Mel going aggressive with the tour de force, being that pseudo-duelist, but it's going to be Kirai who's going to find the shots here, and now the drop down from heaven. Leap clean up the retake on this A site.
Wow, I mean, a great retake, and I feel like this is a better retake than we were ever seeing them be able to do on Ascent, and so maybe this just ends up being kind of the comfort map for them as well. We did mention that this is Cloud9 White's pick, but, I mean, that's not to say that, once again, Haven is just such a highly picked map that everyone kind of ends up having a strategy for it, not to mention that it is one of those older maps as well. And this kind of back and forth that we're seeing is going to show just how much there is in the minds of these players to go on towards this map. And now we did get to see that timeout come out from Elite, and now Cloud9 are going to be taking theirs when there are only 3 rounds left in this half. And the last time that we actually saw Cloud9 White go for their timeout, it was because they were on a little bit of a save, a little bit of a more broken buy. And I kind of anticipate that that's the case this time around as well. No, they have full buys as well. So they're just really saying, oh, we've lost a few too many, and we're trying to get ourselves an advantageous spot going into the next half, and see if we can find a way to keep Jazzykins alive for a little bit longer.
Definitely seems like, I mean, the fact that they aren't taking a lot of defaults on Haven, since they seem to have a lot of set pushes, they're trying to go aggressive, especially since they have the double initiator setup. It makes it a lot easier for them to take that space. but they're trying to adapt to the plays that Lee is throwing at them as well. Unfortunately, that Lee buddy isn't going to find any information. They really need to be careful about this short push since they're not clearing it out with the paint shells, and now Cat going down. That's their controller, and the fact that he won't be able to isolate some angle is going to make it a lot harder for them to clear the site, especially against a team like Leak that is finding a lot of stride now.
Yeah, and they are finding it off of Kure on this chamber. Has been one of those players to really find those first bloods onto more players than even just Jazzykins now. And you can tell that player's still there, or potentially still there. That Rendezvous is putting that chamber back up towards heaven. But Mel kind of still senses that something is up and is watching this angle. And I mean, Lee has got to just be feeling good about how much they've been able to keep Cloud9 White at bay for these last few rounds.
Cloud9 White, they did just take that tack pause, and I think they're trying to adapt their play styles
30
slightly.
seconds left.
They're going to play a little bit slower, but now 30 seconds left. They need to commit somewhere, and that spike is still sitting towards the A site, which is also where, unfortunately, this operator is. The haunt goes out. Since someone shoots it out, they know that there has to be someone sitting there. And Mel, it's up to her to win this first gunfight, but Dinks is going to take that one. And Jazzykins, though, trying to go big, but Dinks is just all over the place with these satchels and Leet. They're going to tie it up 5-5.
I mean, this back and forth that we're really starting to see in the amount of rounds that Lee has been able to adapt and get back. I mean, that time they didn't even let Cloud9 White get the bomb down, which is a big improvement from how the last few rounds have gone. And that's just going to show how kind of more confident Elite are getting. They're really saying, okay, we're winning off of getting these first bloods, and we think we can, like, what's the counter to losing to first bloods? You try to play to the buddy system, you try to go for those trades. And they're saying, you know what, we're going to also follow up by doing a very similar game plan and just anticipating what you're going to do in response to us. And it's working out very nicely for Elite.
Is taking so much early space, but this time Jazzy is going to be the one to find the first blood. The Prowler is going to find it, and Mel can't capitalize though. There's the C's to try and throw them off. Bob goes for a good swing, and all of a sudden they are all over the C sites. They make it a 2v4, and it's not the round right after their tack pause, but this one seems to be making good space. They suspect the flank is there, though. There's not a lot of space here on the flank, since that's usually where Mel is sitting. But Jazzykins does now have the operator, and it's Shen who's going to try to make things work. But Alexis swings for the kill, and it's nicely done by Cloud9 to make sure that they don't have their advantage lost right at the end of this round.
Yeah, and they have one more round to try and give themselves more of an advantage going into the second half. And we did see them go 7-5 on the first map that we did watch, and then be able to take it all down. It was a much closer game at 11-13, but it was enough for them to get that dub. And now they said, hey, C worked out pretty well for us last time, and they're potentially going to anticipate Jazzykins being aggressive towards Garage once again. And this change of 4 players towards Long and just hoping that they commit more resources to Garage seems to be the right play, as that's exactly what Leet have done.
Bomb buddy out.
Oh, Bob! Agility, such nice position, but at least they are able to trade that one out on the side of Cloud9. Elite, they still have these 2 ultimates left over, and Jared is making good space, denying them that garage position. Jared, what in the world? And Mel also whipping the shot on the operator. Now a 1v4 situation. I don't know if Mel can pull out a hat trick that's big enough for this team. And there's just a showstopper being pulled now. There's also the Nightfall. And now Dinks with the showstopper takes down Mel. She is able to find one, though, on her way down. But still, a tied half for Cloud9 White.
Yeah, that was, I mean, Jared's first kill that was through a blind, phenomenal. And then everyone else just, that's one of those things that really is hard when you have that first kill go down where you're like, well, you should have been blinded, so that first one was lucky, and then you just have everyone else on your team kind of funnel in even though that blind dissipates. Jared was just like, sure, I'll take it. I'll get to hold this exact same angle and have you funnel into me one at a time, and it ended up working out. Jared collected 3 kills and the round for Elite. And now Cloud9 White going to be on this defensive side, but we did see them play an absolutely insane defensive start path to Ascent, and maybe they have as strong of tactics on this map of Haven.
The defense on Haven is a little bit of a tricky situation with the 3 sites on Haven, but I definitely think that it is possible that Cloud9 might be able to balance this one out at 6-6 on the half, since we do see that they're taking a lot of space on the defense, and that is exactly the way that Haven should be played.
Yeah, it does really kind of force certain players into a choke point. Unfortunately, Kirei at least anticipating that will be a play style. Mel, though, able to gather a little bit of information from how far she was able to push up, and hopefully that's going to be enough for some of these rotations to come out, and for Cloud9 White to really, at least, even though down a player, anticipate where Elite are planning to isolate their attack.
Elite, they're playing very slow. Now 30 seconds left on the timer, and they're just
30
making
seconds
a
left.
full rotation all the way around to the C site.
Oh, but it's
And
anticipated.
they are running incredibly fast. Cloud9 White, they're running fast too, but I think that fault line was actually a little bit too early, and now they're just flooding the site. The paranoia, not sure how much that hits, but there's no capitalization.
10
trying to
seconds
sneak
left.
around.
Spike planted.
But
1 enemy remaining.
Run, cat, though. And Cloud9, once again, another pistol under the belt.
Another pistol under the belt, and get themselves that 7th round. That buy-up could be so sweet. An extra moment of breath for Cloud9 White. A great use of the information that Mel was able to gather. Once again, even though Mel did fall and get a little bit punished for pushing out that far, knowing that Mel could even push out that far and not hear anything alongside Cat, actually, because Cat kind of followed up and moved up really far. Just using the information or the lack of information in certain areas to really zero in on where their opponents were and make that early rotation that got themselves that round. Beautifully done, and awards them with some nice Spectres going into this one, and Jazzykins picking up that first blood.
Cloud9, they're trying to build up their momentum once again, but unfortunately they lost hold of it in the last half. And now Mel, once again, that aggressive sentinel, taking these power positions, cutting off those rotations should they want them. But since there's no trademark on the flank this time, Mel has liberty to just walk straight up into A lobby and get a good position behind this team.
Jazzykins peeking out. Makes it known that that's where that raise is holding, but Lee are down a player and on a lower gun power, so gonna try and just move themselves onto B site and play a scrappier round.
And the Cloud9, they're backing off into both of the lanes.
Last
oh,
player
what
standing.
in the world was
Flawless.
that? Unfortunate missed shot. And a flawless from Cloud9 White, which is just bodes well for them going in the bonus. But I mean, Cloud9, they made a good move, just backing off, spamming the utility, and then trying to go for the re-peek instead of straight up fighting for the B site.
Yeah, because that's the other thing that you maybe don't always think about. Usually you just think, oh, they're stuck on pistols compared to us having Spectres. But the other thing that you also have on those buy-up rounds is a full set of utility, whereas a lot of the lost side is kind of forced back to pick and choose on certain pieces of utility to fully save for the next round. So being able to just spam it and make sure that everyone holds on to those guns alongside that utility is a great call, as Jazzykins uses that utility to get right next to Dinks, who finds that first blood, and Kirei with a nice follow-up, and both of those doppelgangers are falling very swiftly.
Bomb buddy out.
Ooh, Dinks is in a really tough position here with a lot of utility being spammed,
Last
but
player standing.
Cloud9 at a deficit, and Dinks with the hopping right click apparently is able
Spike
to find
planted.
one, and now it's all left up to Cat. This bonus, even though they have a flawless on the second pistol, they're just not able to net anything just yet. Now Cat with the Spectre and a Ghost. Not sure if she can find a pick here before going down. Retaking A site, especially from this position, is just incredibly tough.
You spot that first player, tries to peek with the Ghost. It's not going to be enough, as you mentioned. Extremely difficult situation. 1v5, lower gun power, and that A site just having so many choke points for post-plant positioning on attacking side. Does mean the Cloud9 White falter a round, but will be able to buy up, and Mel, namely buy up into that operator, is going to stick towards this A site, set up those rendezvous points, and see if we can kind of emulate how we saw Kire play on the last round.
Seems like they're going to go for this now.
Mel.
And Mel, ooh, with the operator too, trying to get aggressive, and is just punished for it severely. No backup once again from the initiators of Cloud9, and Bob only finds one before going down.
Spike down
Alexa's
A.
going to try to find more, but it's just trades back and forth. Cloud9, they've made it into a 2v2, but Kirai picking up the operator. Let's see what they can get done here. Now walking all the way up to default with the spike, faking those spike plant noises to see
Spike
if someone is going to try
One
to peek
enemy
out.
remaining.
Jazzykins though, finding one, and
Ooh.
Cat from above is just the savior of Jazzy as they find two.
Yeah, great. I mean, I'm just floored that Cat was able to, even though the opposing side was watching Heaven the whole time, still peek out and find both of those kills without falling. So beautifully done by Cat there. Actually, potentially a little bit of a distraction coming out through Jazzykins, and that buddy system working out so well as Leet off of that loss, taking a lot of these early timeouts. And I mean, there's something to be said. Sometimes I like the early timeouts, but I feel like we're seeing maybe too many early timeouts from Lee. Usually I'm a better like now rather than when you're like clawing yourself back from I don't know, a 1 to 12 like we saw Lee previously. So at least this time they have some wiggle room, but I feel like we're just not far enough into a lot of these rounds to really be able to tell how Cloud9, I said it again, Cloud9 White are choosing to play this map, and we're not really seeing how their adaptations flow or anything that is markedly Cloud9 White to really go for these adaptations quite yet, but at least talking about what you're seeing in those evenly matched rounds, I suppose, can be very helpful. And maybe it will be enough for Elite to be able to find themselves their stride and some rounds right back.
Well, it definitely seems like I do agree with you that it was maybe a little bit early, but for Leet, I think everything is on the line for them since this is not their map, they're down a map, and if they lose this one, it's out. But Dinks now getting shut down by that early Prowler. At least they do sniff out Mel. They know exactly where she is, and it's going to be the Steve mid combo. And it's actually Kirai that's going to be able to get into Garage and take down Jazzy off at that window. But there's the Nightfall to try and get some information. It's a little bit slow moving, unfortunately, and just doesn't mark anyone. Instead, they're going to go for that opening that Kirai made for them by taking down Jazzy and see if they can get into this C site. A trade back and forth between Jared and Kat, just a little bit of damage and pot shots from back Shen, but they're going to invest that Rolling Thunder on the side of Cloud9 and Kat. Just a one tap from Generator, though.
Yeah, that was a nice follow-up on that Rolling Thunders. Pushed up maybe a little bit far and maybe isn't ready for where Dinks is going to be.
One enemy remaining.
Just not able to do that tracking that we've seen Kat do in the past. Dinks finds two, and now it's all left up to Bob on this flank. Will it be enough?
Bob, 1v4 situation. And now the showstopper also available as well as the tour de force, but Shen, they don't need it. Shen, the only player without an ultimate available, just watching where Bob is coming through. And I think Bob being on the spade, maybe less of a comfort pick and just trying to fit into the team comp a bit more, but definitely finding a lot less impact. The timings just aren't as crisp and as clean as it was with the Sova.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with you
That's a good
there,
spot.
and I think that Dinks and Curie are also just doing a phenomenal job on this map in particular of finding early picks. They've really been just so instrumental at figuring out exactly where Cloud9 White are hiding and kind of without the help of a lot of utility and just, yeah, making these aggressive plays that are finding themselves early picks that we weren't really seeing on Ascent and are making all the difference here on Haven.
Now, neither side having an early pick swing towards their direction, but only one round gap closer between Elite and Cloud9 White. It's that showstopper and tour de force once again that I am looking at, and the fact that Cloud9 have only sheriffs into this round. Shen
Jazzy
just
Kim.
tried to peek through. Jazzy! Oh, that's the best time! It is actually but the showstopper being popped and just nothing gained from it. That is so unfortunate for Cloud9 White, but Leet are making such good ground. Showstopper once again being taken out by Dinks, going to go aggressive. Actually, not aggressing too far. They're
Spike
being
planted.
very careful in the way they play, and Cloud9 was just waiting for that rocket launcher to be fired into their spawn, sitting very far back.
Yeah, and I mean, for Cloud9 White, this is a save round, so just trying to do as much damage as possible, and you've got to be feeling pretty okay considering that you've already been able to pull out one ultimate through this. Unfortunately, not going to be able to find any other kills, but at least forcing some amount of ultis to get invested into this round has got to put you at least a little bit at ease, but still an even match. And, I mean, since taking that tactical pause, we have seen Leet find themselves 2 rounds. So good to say that they've made those needed adaptations, and even though they used that showstopper in the last round, still have quite a bit ready into this one, as they do have that from the shadows tour de force, as well as the ever-loved lettuce of doom in the form of Jared's Seekers.
Cloud9 White, Jazzy was trying to get aggressive once again, and the support from Bob wasn't enough here. They're going to use that aftershock in hopes of trying to delay the push from Garage, and it's a quick rotation here from Cat as well with the use of the From the Shadows. But Shen is going to find one onto Alexis, and it's the guiding light on through as well that finds so much value. Leap, they're trying to take control of this map, trying to take the round forward. It's up to Mel, who finds the first, but can't find the second. They're denied the flawless, but Leap, they still take it up to double digits.
And Lee are just starting to look so clean round and round again. And I can't help but feel like we're maybe seeing Cloud9 White try to make this adaptation of being too aggressive. Like, I feel like Jazzykins was up a little bit too far, was maybe hoping that they just weren't going to start off by being mid and getting caught in a rough situation. So that is going to force the timeout for that side. And hopefully they'll be able to talk about the differences that Leet have made, as well as discuss how exactly, if they are going to go for being aggressive to counteract Leet, maybe a little bit of a better way to counteract with aggression.
Here.
I definitely agree with you, the fact that they are going a little bit too aggressive, but they have 2 initiators. They should be able to get that aggression in without having such huge deficit, or at least finding a trade. But it just seems like they're not using that utility properly, gathering enough info before they're telling their duelists to just go on ahead and try to get those early picks and use the element of surprise here. And like, because Bob was right next to Jazzy in that engagement, just across in the cubby, but that positioning wouldn't allow them to secure a trade unless there was someone in window, which there just unfortunately wasn't. So now they're trying. I think they really need to try and use some of that C's nade combos that we did see from Lee to get that early damage, or possibly even a frag here, and also just use the haunts more effectively in gathering the info, because otherwise they don't really have anything. The guiding lights at least find a little bit of info, but Jazzy, whoa! The aggression from Garage to take down Shen, and that first blood secured for Cloud9 White.
Yeah, that was a nice use of information. They were able to hear those footsteps push out into B site and said, all right, somebody's got to be left behind here. And that is more than enough for a bunch of kills to actually end up going Cloud9 White's way. And maybe Lee just made a mistake by going for this B site. Oh, maybe I've spoken too soon as Agility tries to find that final kill onto that member defusing. But Mel, thankfully, just gonna go ahead and say, hey, I'm here to help out my teammate, and the thrifty round does get secured by Cloud9 White there. I'm dubious. Maybe Elite were just like, oh, they won't expect us to go B, but it feels a little bit spooky to go for B when your opponents are playing weapons that are worse at long range. Like, I feel like you would want to go for A or C site on a round where you know your opponents are going to be saving because their guns are just going to be strictly worse, but instead Leet just decided to maybe go for a bit of a surprise attack, and it ends up going Cloud9 White's way. So adaptations coming out from both teams, and we're kind of going in a strange loop here.
There.
Now, Cloud9 White and Elite 10-10. They've popped the Tour de Force on the side of Elite. They have the Nightfall for Elite as well, but Cloud9 White only have the From the Shadows, and I would argue that the Nightfall and the Tour de Force, incredibly powerful ultimates here that can get a lot of value as long as they are used correctly. And now Elite hanging around this A site, that Nightfall could be instrumental in starting a take. They know there's no one hiding in the corner. The C's just not getting any tendrils, but the Haunt also not finding any value. They didn't even shoot it, so I don't think they know that there's someone there. But Jared's going to be making some noise now. Now they know there's someone hiding in the close corner, and they're just going to decide to back off this time.
Yeah, this is a little bit interesting for Lee. A lot of these rounds they've been able to pick up early kills, but Cloud9 White hanging back really far. That Nightfall does come out, but it is a little bit of a bait that actually does so much as to pull out that From the Shadows. We do end up canceling it for Cat, and we're going to have a little bit of a collision there in Omen action. But Agility is able to get the better of there, and now Cloud9 White have a lot of work cut out for them as they did get a little bit baited there. And now some time is eaten up. The post-plant situation is set up from Leet, and they've got to figure out exactly what they're doing here. What is this post-plant? I mean, I think it's going to end up working for them, but holy smokes are they far back.
Yeah, I mean, they are definitely just sitting in a lobby, and Cloud9, they're taking their sweet time going for the defuse. They're trying to bait out the shots. Jazzy just took the wrong peek.
One enemy remaining.
With the Tour de Force. And now Alexis, the call has been made. It just saved the gun as the spike detonates, and Lee, with all 5 players alive. I honestly don't know what that post plant was either.
It worked,
like
though. I don't know.
Mel with this operator, they're trying to get something done with the, like, I mean, I don't know what the retake was either. I think it was good to try and take control of the rotations in through Garage and Grass. Definitely very powerful to play those positions from Lead. But for Cloud9, I feel like they're playing the operator, they're playing this really powerful gun on the defense and just making the wrong reads. And it is so detrimental because having that operator in the retake, especially since Chamber doesn't really have any mobility, is just not helping their case in the slightest.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the decision there was like, how do we lose this round? Oh, we lose this round by getting too aggressive, or we lose this round by having just getting pre-fired around corners and saying that isn't possible if we all stay as 5 and hold this long angle together. And it ends up working out. I mean, only one player had to go in on Garage, and that was Shen, and I'm not sure that Shen even needed to do that. I think that that operator would have been more than fine. So it ends up working out really nicely for Elite, despite being maybe not the most intuitive or what most teams would actually end up doing.
Ooh, Shen getting pinged out by the Haunt at the very least. Nets Cloud9 some info, but now it's from the shadows, from Agility to try and make their way into heaven, and now Agility is literally sitting right on top of Bob, and I'm sure Bob heard that as well, but Kurai is in a good position to catch out Mel, who is now alone in C-Link, and it's just a collapse from Leet onto all the members of Cloud9 right on their own map pick. Alexis finds one though, and Bob is in such a good position in hell. Bob finding two before going down, but then at least even it out to a 2v2. Now time in the red, Leet trying to bring it to match point. 45 seconds for the spike timer to go down, and it's a judge.
Yeah, that's a little bit spooky. And what's spooky also is this separation from the two remaining defensive players, but maybe that's actually going to be a huge plus here. And now they're just going to run onto site, both of them, say, hey, you know, if you've got a judge, you want to get pretty close. And Kat says, well, I can be a little bit of a bait for you to be able to get that easy pickup. Gonna give that defuse over to Jazzykins, get a little bit closer to that showstopper, and a little bit closer to match point for both of these teams now, who are at 11-11. The last time Cloud9 were at 11-11, they did clutch up the final 2 rounds and take home that W, get themselves to this point. Elite have done such a fantastic job of making adaptations and being able to capitalize on their first bloods that if they do it again, I bet you they can get themselves to match point as well.
And now Lead having that Seekers online. They've also got pretty good economy thus far as well. And this time they're going for the early info in Garage once again. Instead of more of a default though, they're using that Trailblazer. They've taken down the dog that was trying to get into Garage, but it still nets them some info. Someone is sitting close. At this point they've repositioned, but now the Seeker is going out. A lot of util being jumped by Jared, and it's netting them a lot of info, but they're able to reposition pretty quickly, and Agility is stalled out by the dark cover, has to go for the rotation, and instead they picked up the spike. They're headed towards A this time.
Yeah, this could be an interesting, as you mentioned, a lot of utility being used and not a whole lot of equity until a nice jump peak to come out. They located where Bob was, and a nice capitalization with that peak from that operator. So beautifully done by Elite to get themselves quickly onto site. The rotations are trying to come out from Cloud9. Will it be enough? If Jazzykins finds this many kills, it just might be. Agility is the only one remaining, but can't find the head of Jazzykins, who finds 4 kills and nets Cloud9 White that match point.
I feel as long as Cloud9 White can force these rotations out of Elite and force them to respect, give them a little bit more space, then it allows Cloud9 to make really, really quick rotations, especially with Jazzykins. And I think these rounds where Jazzykins is popping off and finding a lot of value is going to help, is just really where Cloud9 seems to be thriving. They just need to give her that support, use the Haunt, use the Nightfall, use the fault lines and aftershocks, and as long as they can go with that CC, they can give her that information, then Jazzykins has a lot of potential to go for this really big fragging power. But ooh, Bob with the operate. I know, Bob with the op. I'm saying now, Bob and Mel with the op. This is slightly toxic, but they use the Nightfall, and now with 2 operators, they take down 2 kills in tandem. And Elite, they have to be careful in a 2v5 situation. Spike is at least in their control, but they're pushing the operator, and Bob finds 3.
That's all I gotta say. Bob was like, if you use an operator to best me, I'm gonna make sure that I am able to get that as well. I mean, fault line came out. The paranoia doesn't stop Jared from picking up 1 kill, but the 4 remaining Cloud9 White players are on the prowl, and they're on the prowl for the win.